Welcome back to the channel, y'all. So, if you've ever wanted to change your roller rockers on your Fox body, well, with the heads on the car and the intake on the car, or you needed to change push rods for whatever reason with the intake on the car, this video is for you. So buckle up and stay tuned. Well, this is going to be, I'm going to try to keep this one quick today because this is pretty hot out here already this morning. So stay tuned. Let's go. Alright, so what I got going on is I had a rocker arm break a while back and I replaced the roller rockers. Didn't get it on film because I was trying to get the car done to get it back, to get it to the paint shop, and then it was a mad scramble to get to Ford takeover. So what I noticed and what I measured, and I'll show you here when I get them back out, was that the push rods, I've got a couple push rods that well, the push rods that are in it are not 5/16, they're like closer to 3/8. So a couple of them are rubbing on the push rod guide plates, which causes interference with the valve train, and you know, is probably what's causing a miss, and that I think I have, and some valve train noise. So today I'm going to be getting the rockers off, replacing the push rods. If any of the guide plates are bad, I'm going to replace them. I also got new guide plates from Trick Flow because these are Trick Flow 170 heads. But yeah, I'm going to step you through the process. You got to find top dead center. In order to do that, you got to get the spark plugs out. Watch my previous video if you want to know how to do all that stuff to get to top dead center on cylinder 1. You also got to get the plenum off, which, you know, I've done multiple times on camera, so watch one of my other videos if you want to see that. So next I got to get the valve covers off, which this one's already off. I just got to pull it out. And we'll get going with sorry. Okay, we'll get going. Get the other valve cover off. It's just 11mm bolts holding it on. It's like 5 of them, I think, or maybe 6. I think it's actually 6. Yeah. So those come right off, and then it gives access to all the valve covers. And once we get going, I'm gonna get that off, and I'll be back. All right. So both valve covers are off. Upper plenum's out of the way. All right. To get to the first one, I'm on top dead center for number 1, so I know both valves are closed on the compression stroke. Well, the compression entering the power stroke. But how you take out your rockers to replace them will depend on what rockers you actually have, but most of them have some type of poly lock, which will have some type of Allen head key inside and a hex head on here. Now I've already busted this one loose, but you may, you know, bust it loose, and I need to get these put somewhere. Once I get these off, actually, good spot for them. So I covered up my intake. So guess this works. Now, okay, so next, we pull out these old push rods. So these, I don't even know what brand these were. They were marked as 0650s as far as length, but they ended up being closer to 3 inches or 3/8 of an inch thickness, which isn't right for this. So eyeballing these pushrod guide plates, they look pretty well in line. It's easier to tell when you look at them this way. You know, consider like these 3 points. So most of these I don't think I'm going to have an issue with. I think my clearance issue was actually related to the thickness of the push rod. So let me grab a couple of these here. I already see trick flow 650s, which actually, hold on one second and I will go grab one so I can make sure that they are the same length. Yep, so they are the same length, and yes, the old one was substantially thicker. I already mic'd one of these and it comes out to 5/16 of an inch, so these should work much better. I can already tell a difference and how much more space there is. You notice when I pulled those old ones out, I kind of had a little kick up with this one. So, all right, so let me get the rockers back on real quick. Let's set y'all over here. Just for a second. This is my poly lock. Now, all I'm going to do for this rotation of each cylinder is get the slack out of the push rods, and then I will go back through on the I'll go back through on the firing order and tighten them up, you know, with the exhaust opening intake closing method. Okay, all I'm doing here is getting it to where they're tight enough that when the cam pushes on the valves, they'll actually move. Okay, so I'm done with this one for now. Number one, I'm gonna go in firing order. Almost lost y'all. There go, I think. So I'm going to turn the crankshaft a quarter turn, which will put it on number 3 in the right position. And it looks like it is. So all I'm going to do is repeat the process in firing order, just getting them snug replaced and snug back up. So it'll be 1, 3, 7, 2, 6, 5, 4, 8. Then I'll be coming back through in firing order and tightening down the intake valves as the exhaust valve is opening, and then the exhaust valves as the intake valve is closing. So I'll talk through each one of those, but I'm gonna just do, probably won't even do it, probably, I don't even think I'm gonna bother with a time lapse for this, because it's really just doing this 8 on all of the 8 cylinders. So hold on 1 second and I'll be back. All right, so now I've got all the new push rods in, and these are all snugged up. Now I'm gonna turn it to get back on number 1 top dead center, which should only be 1 more quarter turn. Got a little off, but that's close enough. So now, what I'm gonna do is turn it until the exhaust valve. So first off, you need to know which one's the exhaust and which one's the intake. On small block Ford heads, the right valve, as you're looking at the head, the right valve is the intake, the left valve is the exhaust. You can also tell because the exhaust valve will line up with your header, primary. Okay, so I'm gonna turn the motor over until I start seeing the exhaust valve raise up. That makes me know for sure that this is down on the base circle of the base load of the cam. So then I will tighten that one up, and then we'll go a quarter turn from each one of those, and that should be putting us where, if back in firing order, we get all the intake valves done. So let's see if we can see when this there we go. All right. Whew. Sorry, it's hot today, guys. Let me get my tools. I'm gonna loosen this guy up a little. Now he's not tight anyway. All right, so now I will, making sure it's centered, tighten it up until I can't spin the push rod anymore. Now I'll spin down the poly lock, and I'm gonna do a half a turn. Oop, I think I got that a little too tight. Hang on a second. Back that off. You get it back. Okay. Got tension back again. There's a half turn. No. Hold it real quick while I tighten down the poly lock. Okay. Now, if you focus on number 3, hopefully I can see it. Number 3 exhaust valve. I'll turn the motor quarter turn, and we should start seeing it open. There we go. She's opening a little. And this should be loose. Yep. So, okay, slacks out. I'm gonna go. I think I'm gonna go like this. Give me enough. So directions say from go a half. Yeah. Okay, that's close enough. Now. All right, so this is all I'm doing for the intake. So I'm just going to rinse and repeat through firing order 137-26548, rotating the crank a quarter turn every time until I am verifying while I do that I see the exhaust valves open. Once I get all 8 done, I'll be back and talk about the exhaust valves. Okay, all 8 intake valves are tightened up. So now I'm back at top dead center for cylinder number 1. Now I'm going to rotate it. You probably can't see it on camera very well, but I'm going to rotate it so that the number 1 intake valve, it's going to open, and then when it's about halfway closed, then I'll do the exhaust valve. Then I'll go and do in firing order. So it's opening, it's closing, there, halfway. Let's see if I'm, and I know it's got to be at the base circle because it's even looser than it was before. So half a turn. Get this run down. All right, I'll show you on number 3. Same thing, should be a quarter turn. There we go. It's close enough. Yep. Okay. All right. Still spin it. There we go. See, that one's, I think I need to tighten that one just a little extra for some reason. Okay. All right. So, just like before, I'm going to be going a quarter turn on the crank roughly to get the intake valves halfway closed and go through all the firing order, and then I'll be back. So all 8 of the exhaust valves are done now. So now I'm going to get it back on top dead center, and because I marked my distributor, so disregard these orange marks, this mark lines up with the dot that I painted on the intake plenum, and that's where the center of my rotor was for top dead center of cylinder number 1, which is not top dead center because my ignition's advanced. If you had 0 degrees of base ignition, that would, then the rotor would be on right on the dot, on the rotor where the spark plug contacts. But since it's advanced, it's going to be off a little. Anyway, so I'm going to rotate the motor to get the distributor lined up and the timing mark, because I'm going to be pulling the distributor back out of the way to put the intake. Oop, a little bit off. You know what? I'm still a little bit off here. There we go. So you probably won't be able to see it unless I do this. Timing mark. That green line is my 0. Rotor's centered up pretty much on that. So now I can pull the distributor back out. When I put the plenum back on, if I'll line the distributor shaft itself up with the dot on my plenum, and as long as this is lined up, then I know I got the right tooth. Okay, so really all that's left for me to do is start putting it back together. Pretty simple, honestly. So far, I'll do a time check here. I've only been working on this about an hour. So, now granted I had a lot of stuff out already off, but that was all the simple stuff, you know, the cold air intake and the throttle body and the spark plugs. So that's all simple stuff. It'll probably take me 10-15 minutes to put the valve covers and the plenum back on. Probably another 20 minutes. I'll be back once I get it all together, and hopefully we did everything right and she'll be running. So stay tuned. Okay, so it's the next morning. I was putting the car together yesterday and ran into a snag. One of the studs that bolts the upper plenum to the lower intake, that first 3 or 4 layers of thread had stripped out, so I had to go to the store to get a new bolt. But it was also just so hot out here that I just didn't work on it yesterday. So I'm going to try and get this thing finished up. As you can see, I got the spark plugs in, distributor back wired up, plug wires in. Got pretty much everything all ready to go. I just got to put the intake on, get the belt and the fan mounted back up, and should be ready to fire this thing off. So I'm going to set you all down real quick on a time lapse and let y'all just watch me work, I guess. Alright, so did a once over off camera. Everything's tight. Timing's pretty much should be pretty well right where it used to be, within a degree or so. Checked all my vacuum lines. I will check it once again. Make sure I've got 1, 2, 3 on the back of the intake. All those are plugged in. Make sure it didn't pop one loose over here. One of these days I'm going to just replace this whole setup. But for right now, I think we're good. Alright, let's see if we can get this thing fire. So obviously, if I had a lifter, you know, pushrod valve train binding issue, that would affect the idle, so I'm going to have to do a base idle reset on this thing eventually, at some point in the near future. Probably I'll do it today off camera, because obviously if I was having to overcome a weak cylinder from that issue, there's probably more, the side idle set screw is probably now set too high, but I'm going to let it warm up and see what it sounds like, see if we can get rid of that, and see also if it kind of smooths out. So I'll be back once it warms up. All right, so the chirping's kind of getting quieter, so I'm gonna let it run for a little bit. I'm actually fixing to do a base idle reset real quick. It does seem to be idling a little bit higher, but I'm gonna do that real quick so I can disconnect the battery, and then probably let it go from there. So that's pretty much gonna be a wrap. I'll do a quick outro with the base idle reset. I'm not gonna cover the base idle reset because I've done it multiple times now, and there's so many videos out there on how to do it. But yeah, all in all, it took longer to get all the stuff out the way, you know, the fan, because I got the, you know, a belt-driven fan, the intake, the plenum. It took longer, honestly, to get all that stuff out than actually changing the roller rockers and doing it the extra step of going the intake or exhaust opening, intake closing method. It actually only took me like 40 minutes or so of doing that. It took longer to take everything out of the way and put everything back than it did to do what you're actually doing. So it's not too bad. Anyway, if you found this video helpful or you enjoyed it, please like, share, and subscribe. Yeah, this is just another project down, and until next time, I'll be back.